So a lot of times, one of my friends was proofreading my capstone, and he was actually in India at the time. And he had come home, and he was leaving little comments in the margin saying, "This definitely happened. I was in India for 6 months, and I came back to Ireland, and everyone is telling me to stop talking about India, and if you love it so much, just go back there." And he's like, the glazed over eyes, yes, definitely, I see this. So when you come home from something and people just don't want to connect with you in the way that you want them to, Bruce LeBrock has this idea of shoeboxing. So you get home and you have to kind of compartmentalize your experience because people just, after a while, don't want to hear about it anymore. And people just kind of either physically put things away, they put their pictures away, they put their souvenirs away, they shove it under the bed and it's gone. Or they mentally do it, and that's when they're not reflecting on their experiences, not getting more learning out of it. So at Unpacked, we have a no shoeboxing policy. When you come back from a program or you come back from an experience, and it doesn't have to be a structured learning experience, even like that one staff member I was talking about who was traveling just on her own, you can still have a very transformative experience on your own and come back and have opportunities to reflect on it and put it into something like Unpacked. So I want Unpacked, I want the program to be a catalyst for getting people to start reflecting. Again, the reentry worm looks very much like the cultural adjustment process. You're kind of excited to get home, then you start feeling that something's not quite right. Your family's used to being home, but you're not quite used to being home yet. You see the changes in yourself, and you see that maybe things haven't changed. You go into this reverse culture shock that can be very frustrating. And hopefully at some point, you're able to adapt. But in this process, it can be very frustrating, and that reflection that you can do, Unpacked can help you with that. Okay, so moving into the next section. I'm going to also try and kind of do these a little bit quick. There's two pieces to it. I did another survey. You guys are going to be sick of surveys by the time I'm done. It's not another needs assessment, but after I had all this information, I wanted to know what other people in the field were doing. There must be other publications that are out there. So I put together a survey. I sent it to 3 of the NAFSA, and I'm sure all of you know NAFSA, but if you're not sure, the definition is up there. 3 of the NAFSA community forums, the International Student Advising, Campus and Community Programming, and Education Abroad. There are other forums, but these I felt were most applicable. It was a 13-question survey. I'm not going to talk about all of it. I'm going to kind of breeze through different sections. Again, a 10-day collection period. Through SurveyMonkey, 13 people responded, and of the 13 people, 10 had digital publications, which is what I wound up focusing my project on. And we'll talk a little bit more about them later, but you saw what they looked like before we started. Okay, so basically, in general, who managed a lot of these? Before I started this, I kind of expected it to be very study abroad heavy, because I guess in my mind, it kind of makes sense that people are traveling to other places, they have these great pictures and stories, and it just kind of made sense in my mind that study abroad would be the most popular department to manage this. And perhaps it was just the group of people I had those 10 days when I was collecting that it just wanted me to think that it was International Student Advising. And it's not a big difference. I don't have a huge sample size, but I did think it was kind of interesting that international student offices had more of these publications. Study Abroad came in a close second. There were some other offices that were involved. Student groups too. This is a different kind of model that you could do your program. So if we start talking about the tools that you could take away from this presentation, there are different ways that you can manage a program or a publication like this, whether it's completely done by some staff members, or it's done by a hybrid of staff members and student groups, or completely done with student groups with just somebody who oversees the final editing. I don't know if we should open the door, it's kind of sultry. Funding, again, the funding kind of goes hand in hand with whichever offices are. Brandeis, which I mentioned before. It started as with a grant, but then the student group that was initiating it, they were recognized by the university as an official student group, so they now have their funding from the Student Activities Office, so it's completely self-funded. Time to create. A lot of them just took a medium amount of time, which is approximately, I have it written down. Not more than a few weeks per issue. A medium heavy amount of time is about 2 to 4 months, and a minimum amount of time is not more than a few days. So, probably a little bit more lengthy of a process than some other programs that are out there, but we'll talk about this a little bit later. The trade-off is, particularly if you're doing a digital publication, it may take a little bit longer to put together, but you can do a really great, very visual public type of program for very little money. What was submitted, mostly nonfiction stories and photography. I'm hoping that our program will also have poetry and artwork. Who submitted? Mostly undergraduate students, students who study abroad, international students, faculty and staff. Graduate students kind of, I guess, got the shaft, but I think it's because a lot of the programs probably didn't have graduate programs at their institutions. And one said community members, which is interesting. Depending on how a university considers its community. Mission statements, they were all very similar. Their main goal was trying to share and connect with their community, which some definitions of community were a bit more inclusive and more exclusive. How much to publish, how often? A lot of people did like 1 or 2 a year. I think that would be our goal as well. Depending on how long you want to make it, how complicated you want to make it, I think it would be difficult to do like a monthly publication. People usually fell into either, up to 20 pages or up to 40 pages. Tech stuff, this kind of, again, falls into the logistics category. I don't know if you guys know InDesign. It's kind of like an industry standard if you're doing marketing and design and stuff like that, but it's a pretty expensive program, I believe. Some of these others are not so expensive, and I think it's possible, having looked at these 10 publications and which ones used what, that it's possible to have something like Microsoft Publisher that's readily available on many different computers, especially WPI, that becomes standard, that you could do something with like Microsoft Publisher, and that adds to it being a very cost-effective program. Distribution. Again, a lot of people still did print, but then I'm not sure for our program it's necessary. You start talking about being budget conscious and I didn't even think about this till we came to S.I.T, but with the capstone. But doing a digital publication also is very green, so that kind of feeds into the hot topic of the day. I just don't think print is all that necessary, and digital photographs and how technology is now, you can have the same quality picture or better online than you can have in print. Oh, another thing, I'm not going to show you this necessarily, but one of the programs that I learned about during this capstone, there's this website called, I call it ISU, but it might be ISSU, I don't know how the company kind of brands itself, but this is a great program. There's 2 versions of it. There's a free version, which has a few advertisements on the side, and then there's one where you can do for $19 a month. But it digitally renders any PDF into pretty much a digital magazine. So you'll see in a little bit, but you have like a crease down the center, you have a digital page flip. It just makes any PDF look pretty nice. And that would be a very easy way to make your publication very professional. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into this because you already kind of saw them before. But basically there were 10 publications that I looked at, and it kind of spread throughout Lots of different places in the United States. We had Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, North Carolina, Virginia, California, Massachusetts, and Maryland. So there was a nice spread of different programs. As I kind of speed through, I'm just going to look at the one that you saw earlier so you can kind of put them in context. Okay, so I'm just going to put through this. So there are different types of programs that were out there, publications that are out there, ranging from something that was as simple as a newsletter. This is an example of a newsletter, to very fancy ones that we'll see a little bit later on. Something like this. I think it would be good to have for like our international students office. I could totally see us doing something like this for our students, because the newsletters we send out now, I don't think our students read them because they're very text heavy. My director puts them together and the pictures really pull you in. But the fact that there are stories that are involved with them too, but you have things like a big page on tax prep for international students. If you have too many of these kinds of things in a publication, it's going to turn off other readers at your institution. And if your goal is to get, the program goal is to get it to be very inclusive and have people across campus reading it, you don't want to be turning people away. This is the next one. This is from Ohio, another newsletter. I think the other one was probably a better example. This is a study abroad example. This is more of a website than a publication. I probably would have considered it a website, but they solicit for stories and pictures. So depending on the feel of what you want your publication to look like, I think that this is nice and it's a good advertisement. But if you want people to be thinking of it as an actual publication, it doesn't stand out in the same way. There's three here that I think are very similar. Grinnell's, Mosaic, Claremont's in California's Globetrotter. I love the pictures of this. And then Go Global, Global Conversations from Westfield State in Massachusetts. So all three of these kind of share the same characteristics. Interestingly enough, two of them were designed with a very fancy, the expensive InDesign program. One of them was done with Microsoft Publisher, the cheaper standard technology program, which you might not necessarily be able to tell which one did which. So that kind of is indicative of what you could do for pricing. But yeah, we're starting to kind of move towards what I think the model for WPI, what we might want for Unpacked. Back to this. This is another example. This is very different than some of the other ones. This is actually a WordPress blog. And again, they characterized it as a publication, but I think it's great as a blog, but I think the blog has a different feel than a publication. And I think you could do a blog too. Like I said, there are lots of different models to how you could do this. And what I want you to do is kind of take away different tools. So if you think something like this might work for your institution, if you think that your population would respond to a blog better than a publication, like a digital publication, I think that's great. WordPress is a great program to use for that. So now we're starting to move into the final three. World-minded, this is from William and Mary. You're starting to get to fancier design layouts. These are starting to look more like professional magazines. And then you get to the final two, Maryland International and Brandeis's Wander. I think these are great examples. Maryland's publication, I think, is a little bit too fancy in a way. I think it'd be very difficult unless you have a design background to do some of these things, or it would take a lot of time. It looks great, but we also have to kind of work within the And I've been kind of trying to think, this is the latest version of Wonder, why I really like this program so much. And I think it's because of my love of National Geographic. They kind of look very similar in that there are these great, big, beautiful pictures, and then interspersed with some really interesting stories. The design layout is pretty simple. I think it would be pretty easy to lay out. I don't think you would need a fancy, expensive computer program. I think that you don't have a good view of there are 13 articles in this magazine. They're all about the same length. So they're nice small chunks that people could digest in one sitting, but they're very interesting. There's one later on about how one of the study abroad students in Kenya or somewhere helped deliver a baby. I mean, just kind of really interesting, different stories, and it was great to sit down and read. Another thing that I liked about it was it had this map at the back where it oriented you in Massachusetts to all the other stories in the world. And I think that this is particularly helpful for people who maybe don't have that much international experiences, that they can start learning and building off of what they're finding in the magazine as a task participant. Okay, so now we're kind of moving into the last phase of the capstone. So you're in the home stretch, to use Americanism. Uh-oh, sweet, this is what you mentioned before. Okay, here we are. So what is the takeaway from this? Digital magazines are great for an office on a budget. They're very easy to make look very professional and very easy to reach a wide audience. So I think you kind of get a lot of bang for your buck when you do a program like this. The main limitation that I'll mention at the end, I think, is time. It depends on how much time your office has and what model you decide to use, whether it's a student group who's putting it together or your office. Okay, so now we're going to move into the design part of the program. So we're kind of getting down into this part of the quick guidelines. So right now, Unpacked is still in it's a little bit beyond its theoretical stages. I've already started talking to different stakeholders at the university. We've had a few meetings, and we're gearing up to start putting it out there and getting people to actually submit something. But we're not quite there yet. So even though I kind of thought out all of these pieces, they are potentially subject to change. So basically, I'll let you guys read the mission statement right up there. But it's the same type of thing that we've been talking about again and again. We want people to reflect, we want people to share, we want the visibility to increase on campus. Unpacked hopes to educate and encourage community members to be interested in responsible global actors. Okay, so now we're getting into some of these nitty-gritty design concepts. So recruitment. There are different pieces. There's both participant recruitment, and then I think that there's like staffing recruitment. So this part is actually staffing related rather than participant related. Before we can even get participants, we need to have people help create the program. Now we're not going to have the staffing budget. We're not going to hire someone to come in and do this. So we're working with volunteers. Luckily, about 104 people are willing to potentially volunteer. So we're looking for a leadership committee to kind of start us off, and the development committee, which I foresee being people who are interested in editing and designing and doing layout. So we've got, these are potential volunteers that we have a cross-section. Right now I'm looking at the model that I want to have a cross-section of people working together on the magazine. Now, after we do the first run, that may change. We might decide the timing is just too difficult to get all these people together, and we might have to switch to being more student organized if the interest is there. We'll have to see. Again, advertising versus marketing. I think advertising is more the participant marketing would be the program marketing. So for advertising, right now we're looking at starting that piece, sending out emails, getting people kind of aware that we're going to be doing this. I'm kind of being a little bit wishful thinking. I really want to have this program have its first inaugural edition of the magazine during International Education Month in November. That is really, really soon. I don't know if we're going to make it, but at least we're starting. And if we don't make it, there's always spring. So we've already started having our meetings. We're going to send an email out the first week of school to try and get people aware. We're going to send targeted emails to the International Student Council and to the IGSD off-campus study people who have just returned, because those are two target groups that we think we could, get some initial people from. We're also going to do an unpacked information booth at the Global Fair. That's going to happen a week before. Right now we've set our submission deadline for September 15th. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but the Global Fair is a week before that, and if we have an information booth and people start talking about it, who knows? Who knows what might happen? We're also hoping to have some kind of big name planted writers in the first one. We're going to see if we can get one of the deans or one of the provosts, or we tried to set our sights on getting the president to write something short and sweet that we can put in the first magazine to just kind of make it a legitimate part of the campus right away, that it's kind of right in there. Marketing, how marketing is different than advertising. This is to get the people. Marketing is to get people to read the magazine. So our plan, if it actually comes to fruition for International Education Month, we're going to have a launch party. And I guess we can still do a launch party. We're almost done. I know it's so hot here. If we do the launch party, we could also do it outside of International Education Month. But we want to get everyone together. We want to invite the president and some of the big key players on campus. Personally, we want to get the contributors there so that they can be recognized for having this reflective experience. And then we want to invite the campus to come and discuss. So right now, in the budgeting, which I'll get to in a few minutes, the main expense for this program right now is the launch party, which is, some snacks and cookies and drinks and something for people to mill about and chew on while they're chit-chatting with each other, which I think is pretty good for something like this that has such high visibility. So how we're kind of envisioning it, there'd be a session where people are kind of having their little cocktail party. The people who were on the design team and the people who submitted something will have that indicated on their name badge. Not everyone will have a name badge, only the people who are associated in an active participant way. And then hopefully these other people who are milling about that can start some conversations about, what did you do? How did you submit? And all of that. After some time, we'll also have screens like this available. So this launch party would happen the day before we actually send it out to the entire campus. So people could have a preview of what the magazine's going to look like. So we'll have some screens set up around the room that people can check out. And then we'll have someone get up and speak briefly about international and intercultural, kind of like what we're talking about now, how it's important for the campus to have these experiences highlighted and discussed, and kind of give an intro to the magazine. And then we're going to have some of our contributors get up and do their, either read or discuss their artwork or their picture. And then the next day will be launched to the entire campus. Hopefully that will create enough buzz that we don't have to do a launch party every time we have a magazine. Hopefully, if this takes as I'm hoping it will, we may do the one magazine every semester. Okay, budgeting, I've mentioned. I just think that this is a great program to do on a tight budget. Technology, again, I've mentioned as well as part of the logistics. I think it can be done without having to be very expensive. And then evaluation. So we're right at the end now. Again, like the participants, evaluation can be both active and passive. The active evaluation, we're looking for someone, we're going to email the people who were involved in submitting something to the magazine. So we're looking to find out, it'll be a survey, but the questions will be about what type of reflective process did they go through to create the submission. We want to learn more about that. We also want to learn more about what the experience was like actually creating this or submitting this to a publication. Was it a positive experience where they were very excited to see their work in print? Was it a scarring experience? Will they never do it again? How can we kind of shape this and help for the future to encourage other people to want to do this? Suggestions for what the magazine should look like in the future. So this would be for the active participants. The passive participants, we envision having a letters to the editor section so that they can give us feedback on content like you have in regular magazines. And then also, this wasn't in my paper, but just kind of going through the process, even just doing this capstone, I was thinking about another evaluation piece. I think the design team should have like a round table, almost like a focus group discussion. It can be facilitated by someone to talk about what worked in the creation process and what didn't work and what can be changed for the future. So I didn't have this originally, but I think it's also a good evaluation piece. And then strategizing for the future. Whenever you start a new program, you need to document like mad so that if anything ever happens, it can still be recreated. If you're hit by a bus tomorrow, it can still go forward without you. So that's going to be a big part of this first inaugural magazine as well. All right, so applicability and limitations. Just kind of in conclusion, let's do limitations first so that we can end on the positive. I think, I mentioned this in passing, I think time could be a big limit, depending on which model you use. I think it could be time heavy, and depending on how fancy you want to make it, how design crazy, do you want to be what is the world-minded from William and Mary or Maryland International, or do you want to do something that's a little bit simpler? Another limitation is interest. Now I'm hoping, based on the needs assessment, that the interest is there and it will continue to be there. But again, a limitation would be if you put out that call for submissions and nothing comes back, it's going to be very hard to complete the program. So that's a potential limitation. Buy-in from stakeholders. So far that I've had some positive experience with. I haven't gotten everyone on board yet, but you know we're getting there. So the buy-in is starting to happen. So I think those are the three main limitations that I see, and I'm happy to hear if you guys have any other thoughts about that. Applicability, as I keep saying again and again, I hope you feel that if you wanted to do something like this, you have some tools you can walk away with. Don't forget that the submission parameters for submission are around here. I didn't really have a time to talk about those, but you can walk away with them. Those are basically the guidelines that we have set up for Unpacked that, you know, if a student wanted to write something, they could have specific types of submissions that they could do. But I think it's very easily replicated, and you have a few different models that you could work with. You don't have to follow the Unpacked model. You could potentially follow one of the other models that are out there. Budget conscious, green friendly. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then these are just some of the bibliography things that I mentioned in passing and talking about the lit review. So if people haven't quite melted yet from being in this room, does anyone have a guess on how many?
It's probably hotter maybe.
Really? I'm like dying of I'm literally in the hot seat. How many unpacked suitcases, or how many suitcases do you take right? So chocolate chip. I think your hand might be first. 17?
So I got 17.
You got 17? It was 17. And
Well, Miranda answered.
We can all share.
No, you don't. But I was saying, you said sent
I
you
have
guys.
two cookies, actually.
That's okay.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. So I guess I want to open it up maybe to some questions. People have some questions, some thoughts. I never want to do this, or maybe I do. Yes?
With the design piece, I was wondering, do you have design as a major at your school?
That's a good question. We certainly have computer science. We have a video game design major, which is very popular with some of our young men, as you can imagine. I'm sure that there's design elements in some of these majors, but I don't think we have a specific design major.
Okay.
But that's a good point.
Yeah, my engineering school, we do have 3 design programs, so we often draw those students for something like that. So I was wondering if we're going to maybe try to involve the students, things that are.
I should double check that. I'm pretty sure we don't have a very specific design, but I'm sure that there are programs that have that as part of the focus. That's a good point. Any other questions?
Yeah, considering the air survey shows that there's such huge potential interest, have you outlined any parameters for selection of submissions, or are you going to leave that up to your committee?
Actually, no. I kind of was so into the design piece that I didn't even get to that really.
Or even like a page limit that you're going
Yes,
for?
we do.
Yeah.
On the
Okay.
parameters for submission, actually, since we do have a few minutes, maybe I should go through just briefly. The parameters have some basic information like what the magazine's about, who can contribute. What can I submit under that section for writing? It says articles, stories, and poetry, 1,000 words maximum, which I think is approximately what Wander had. I think if you get into 2,000, 3,000 words, it can bog you down a little bit, and people are not as willing to kind of pick up something long and read. Photography, we put, it needs to have a minimum resolution of 300 dots per inch, which I'm not super technological, but it's supposed to have, better quality so that we're not getting grainy pictures in the publication. Again, with the artwork, I'm hoping that we can get some artwork as well. That would be really neat. So there are some submission guidelines that are already there. But if we get 100 submissions the first time around, which, again, I wouldn't expect, but who knows, potentially, we would have to kind of sit down and decide, what the criteria would be for. I'm sure that the big name plants would have to probably automatically be in there, but what's considered for this time around or saved for another time, we'll have to decide that as a committee, hopefully. Yes?
Kind of related to that, so the publication, if it's once a year or twice, like depending on how often it's published, how is it coinciding with people who are the known entities who are returning to campus? So that if someone's coming back to campus, at this time of year, they're not, 6 months later before they have submitted something or are encouraged to, or I'm trying to understand the timing of all of that in my head.
Well, that's the kind of nice thing about WPI is that since we have such short terms, these 7-week terms, it kind of feels like we always have someone coming and someone going. And that when they're gone, they're not gone for that long, but then they're back and they're energized and ready to go. So even if we just do it twice a year, you still have, let's say we do it in November, you have the A-term people that just came back, you have the B-term people that are just ready to go, and that's just one semester. And then you still have the summer kids that just came back from E-term not too long ago that's still relatively fresh. So you've got kind of potentially 3 cohorts of people that are ready and raring to go, hopefully. And then the next semester you would again have another 3 potential people.
And you would have another publication.
Potentially, that's what the hope is. So if we have 50 submissions the first time around and we can only have 12, then maybe we could save 12 more for the spring. Or I don't know. That's a question, a conversation we're gonna have to have.
And somehow, I can see tying it into this just study abroad, because it's probably international students because they're the most visible, the most active, and most continuing in their work. So kind of tying it into their programming to make sure that like the study abroad people and the, like everyone, obviously everyone's all on board. So that
And I kind of having these kind of
Faculty.
dream submissions that I would love to see. Like I would love to see the person who's never left Massachusetts before submit something about a student worker from another country that worked in their office and they had a really meaningful exchange and they wrote about it. I think that would be awesome for something like
yeah,
this.
but there's so many levels of cultural.
Definitely, and that's why I was very careful to always mention international and intercultural, and I didn't really mention this explicitly in the presentation, but that's why I always wanted to include intercultural because it's both international, but it's stuff that can also happen here among someone that hasn't had a traditional international experience. Yes, David.
Given the change in technology that is constantly happening, I'm wondering how you think about how you peg the design of Unpacked. I'm thinking, I look now on my iPad and I can go through Flipboard and it's wild. I go all over the place. And I can also look at some things that are more traditional. You're a technologically savvy institution. Your students are technologically savvy. How do you think about sort of what level of design sophistication we should have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, and I'm hoping that some of the people who will join the design committee, or the development committee, I'm sorry,